I probably have had, I don't know, 75 Duke students or so reach out over the years. Um, and it is really a process that I did myself. And it was very career focused, right? And it's to alleviate this idea. You get the phone call, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. What should I do? I'm lost. Should I go into finance? And I feel guilty for it. But I have all these things in my mind, and I'm like, okay, let's pause for a second. What are we working through? Because the reality is, for me, I sort of stumbled into my job at first, and what I needed to do was to take a step back and figure out, what do I want? I had a very unconventional Duke experience. I wasn't someone, I sort of had an insecurity that I wasn't an engineer or science-based individual. So I felt like, do I have any skills? Like, what are my skills? And sort of had a freak out because I wasn't going into the field that I studied, right? I wasn't going to work on the Hill or doing work on policy work. And so for me, it was trying to figure out, how do I navigate this? What do I write out? And how do I become self-reflective to understand where I have gaps in knowledge, and mentors or people along the way can help me with that. So when students call me, or when anyone really calls me, not just students, alumni, friends, I have a very specific process that I go through every time. And it's 3 rounds of process. There are 3 questions you have to answer. And then people call me back with the answers. And then I just criticize their answers. And I just rip them apart, because people aren't being deep enough, right? So they're like, I wanna make money, or like, I wanna live in New York. And I'm like, okay, great. Is it New York or bust? Because if it is, well, there's only so many jobs. There's a lot of jobs, but you won't take a job in Austin. Or is it, I would prefer to live in New York? Okay, how much money do you want to make? What field do you want to work in? What do you actually like? Do you like big groups of people? And it's those things that people haven't really thought through that make it very hard. And I think people fear that being specific means they're going to have limited options, but instead it's called being focused. And so there's this like weird fear around being specific, but you want to be as specific as possible, and just trust that there are a lot of things in the world that you can do, that you're capable of doing, that you're qualified of doing, and that being intentional and focused will not limit you. It will accelerate your path to it. So that is my long-winded answer into, like, that is really the process that I bring people through and try to help them hone in on. Number 1 is, what do you absolutely love about a job? And it's qualities of a job, not the job. So like, I love working with groups of people who are really smart, right? Or like super intelligent or really passionate. It's about being incredibly specific. So usually people are like, I love tech. I'm like, great. What the hell does that even mean? Right. And so when I talk about the 3 rounds, the first round is me saying, you have to get deeper. You have to get deeper. So what do you absolutely love about a job? For me, one thing was, I love work. I love having a sense of autonomy at work, right? Then the list, and it's the top 5 things. You need to put them in order. Sorry, top 10 things. You need to put them in order. Second thing is, what do you absolutely hate about a job? Like, makes you curse, you complain to your friends. It is the worst part of a job. One of my top ones was being told what to do, right? And being boxed into something. And it's the top 10 things. You have to write 10, because the first 5 or 6 would be really easy. Like boom, 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 boom. By the time you get to 8, you're like, and it forces you to actually think, right? It's sort of like when someone's like, what's your biggest weakness? You go, everyone prepare for that in an interview. So in interviews, I'm like, what's your top 4 weaknesses? Because by the time you get to the 4th one, you're like, damn, I didn't get that far. I don't know, right? And so that's why you need 10. And then the third category is, what are your non-negotiables? Top 5 things. And that could be pay, right? So for me, it's like, I got to pay my bills. I didn't have a family. Oh, so I didn't have a family. I didn't have support from my family financially. It was important to me to be independent. Therefore, I had a clear threshold that I had to be able to hit. And it's no harm, no foul. This is the truth. And so there's that. Some people have to live in a certain city. So what are your non-negotiables, and top 5 of those? And you have to prioritize them, because as jobs come in, you need to be able to funnel through them and say, is this really my priority? So if you tell me it's New York or bust, but I tell you this dream job in Austin, are you going to say no? And if the answer to that is like, yes, well, then you're right. The location's top of your list. But if your answer is like, maybe not, then it's like, well, how married are you really to New York? Or is that just conceptually you think you're married to New York, right? So those are really, and it's a 3-round process, and it's just mostly me getting deeper and deeper and asking like why, until the person finally gets to like the core reason.